Dishonorable Mention is brought to you by 813area.com. 813area.com is the place to go to see where to go and what to do in all of Hillsborough County. Whether it's the best events, the newest restaurants, or where to be in Tampa Bay, 813 Area is your resource for everything happening around town. For the latest on where to be in the 813, check out 813area.com. Dishonorable Mention is now on social media. Follow us on Facebook, and we're at Dishonorable Pod on Twitter too. Next week, we'll start taking questions from Twitter because y'all have been an amazing part of this. Thank you.
Welcome to another episode of Dishonorable Mention. I'm Ernest Hooper of the Tampa Bay Times. Joining me as always, Dr. Carla Mastracchio, State Representative Chris Latvala, and community activist Becca Teeter. How you guys doing?
Well, how are you doing, bud?
I don't know. That wasn't very good.
Yeah, that was kind of.
I feel like I should start again. How you guys doing?
Awesome.
This isn't working. We should start over. Can we start over?
Well, I normally would ring in, but Carla told me to talk less.
I didn't tell you to talk
ring
less. I
in.
told
Are
you
you
I ran
kidding?
into somebody at Burns that
Stop
said
already.
Their feelings
that's
No, my feelings aren't hurt. I'm trying to yield to this wonderful collaborative.
No, don't yell.
That's what we do as Democrats. We work as a collaborative.
And for the record, he said that Carla and Chris need to talk more, not just me.
Yeah, be yourself.
Be yourself.
I guess we are awaiting to get details on the Mueller report. What did you guys think about that big breaking news?
No collusion.
How can it be big breaking news when we don't really know what happened? A document was turned in. Like, to me, that's not exactly like, woohoo! Like,
One of the more
watch.
important parts of that document was that Mueller said that there were going to be no further indictments, which means Don Jr. is off the hook, and some of the other folks that were alleged to have colluded with the Russians.
Well, it means that the Mueller investigation won't lead to them being indicted, but there are other investigations going on at the state level, particularly in New York, that could result in more people getting
I
indicted.
think people are barking up the wrong tree. I don't know. A collusion is really hard to prove. I never thought that it was going to go anywhere to begin with because it's really hard to prove. I mean, and they've done a pretty good job of interviewing all the people they need to interview, and I don't think it's going to go anywhere, and I don't think it should at this point. So, I don't know.
No, I have to confess, I did not invest a lot of time and energy in following the various reports regarding the Mueller investigation. I think it was important because we were attacked by a foreign power, and no matter who it involved, we needed to investigate it because Russia tried to meddle with our elections, and we needed to know what they did, how they went about it, and who was involved. I'm not at all disappointed or elated that it apparently didn't involve the president. I felt like it was an investigation that needed to take place. I'm glad it took place, and maybe we can move on with the rest of this administration.
I mean, collusion is really hard to prove, but like that's not how this document's being talked about. Like, people were really excited about the investigation, thinking it was somehow going to unseat, key people in the administration or unseat the president. And I think when you kind of go for broke like that with your language and then it doesn't work, it's a loss for you. Does that make sense? And I feel like you should reframe it so that it's a win for you, but you have to do that in the right way. And I know I'm not making sense right now because I'm kind of thinking it through, but your language can't be, going for broke all the time. I mean, the Democrats really could have had a win with this, but they didn't play their cards right. And as I'm looking at Becca actually deal cards right now, I'm like, they didn't play their cards right. And it's disappointing because now anything short of an indictment or unseating the president is going to be a failure.
Well, and it certainly won't be the first time that the Democrats go overboard on something.
Yeah, agreed.
And Donald Trump's biggest vulnerability, in my opinion, is the financial stuff. And I don't know to what extent Mueller really looked into that. And that might be part of the investigation in New York that's focusing on Michael Cohen and others. So we will have to wait and see.
Agreed.
In other news, the University of South Florida has chosen a new president. Carla, what did you think about that selection?
He was my pick from the 4 that they listed, and I wasn't a huge fan of really the top 4 because I thought we would get candidates from another Research One university that was president, or maybe someone from business, like one of the CEOs of a Fortune 100 company or something like that would want to move here. But of the 4 we got, he was my pick. I thought he was pretty solid, and I think SMU is a great school, and he's got a great track record fundraising. So. Welcome.
Do you feel that way because Kourtney Kardashian, that's where she attended but did not graduate from?
I love Kourtney.
Maybe you felt that synergy.
I really do love Kourtney. She's not my favorite Kardashian, but I do like Kourtney.
Who is your favorite Kardashian?
I like Khloe.
Chloe,
Yeah,
you
I
like that
think-
sassy,
Yeah, Chloe's kind of
no-nonsense
real.
attitude?
I like her. I think she's cool.
God, I'm so proud to
I
say
think-
I don't have a favorite Kardashian.
I think my favorite is Chris Humphries, even though he was a Kardashian. For like
I hate Chris Humphrey. I think he's a horrible person.
I mean, I have no strong opinions about all their partners.
I thought he belittled her on the show.
The only thing I don't like is I think that they have made poor choices when naming their children.
Yeah.
It's like directions, weather. I mean, I don't-
Dreams. I think Dream is like a really weird name.
It
but
sounds.
it's
They all
like-
sound
the
like
young one's
perfume
like
names.
The youngest
Yeah.
billionaire, right?
Kylie. Yeah, but her daughter's named
Stormy.
Stormy. Yeah.
Pretty terrible.
The only thing I like is that if North grows up and has a child and names her child North, then
North by
that child will
Northwest.
be North by Northwest. I'm sorry. I'm fascinated with that. That is my hope for North.
North dresses better than I do. She's got like a.
Although Kim
Pretty
got in
sweet
some
logo.
trouble recently because North was out and about in makeup.
How old is
Oh, whatever.
North? I thought she was a baby.
Yeah.
I don't
like
know,
8.
5? We're not really following very closely into this situation. She could have left for college last week, and none of us are fully aware. All I
And-
know is that there's bigger world problems than me caring if a Kardashian put some blush on their child.
And furthermore, the fact that we transitioned so quickly from Steve Carell
Well, maybe he'll get more
To-
interesting.
to the Kardashians
Maybe he'll get more interesting if it's
is a sad commentary about how interesting he is as the new
Well,
choice.
he seems nice, but that's about it. He's on Twitter, though. He's the first person to lead the university that's actually on Twitter, so that's cool.
If they would have asked me for my opinion, I would have gone with either Mike Griffin or Ed Lorraine, but they didn't ask me, so the SMU guy sounds good.
You know, the fly in the ointment, if you will, is the process is being questioned by some
Okay.
as being not transparent enough, too secretive, and really a bit too expedient. I mean, it all happened once the finalists were announced. It all happened rather quickly, and by design. I don't think they wanted a long, drawn-out process because that would give students and faculty more of an opportunity to explore who these candidates were and who really would be the best choice. So,
I mean, okay, so I have a couple of feelings about this. I think secrecy and transparency don't have to be mutually exclusive, like in this process, because you've got your first phase. You can't just open it up to everyone, let everyone see, because you don't want employers to find out that their people are interviewing. It's just respectful to the candidate. And then when it gets open for public
Do you think
viewing,
it got awkward when they were like, ooh, there's 2 Rutgers people going side by side?
yeah,
It's
I'm
like
sure it did get
a
awkward.
Rutgers duel off.
Yeah, I think it did get awkward. And that's what you have a lack of transparency to prevent that from happening in public, to not embarrass people and not let their employers know. Like, what if you had like the CEO of KFC or Pepsi or something, and they were applying? Like, you don't want their shareholders to know they're leaving right away. I mean, that's just you're preventing good people from applying because they think if they don't get that far in the process, at least they don't want their people to know that they've applied.
I think your military connections are showing.
See, but
What?
I'm not that far off with Carla. I think that
Really?
you have, I think
Like-
that there's a process. It has been successful in the past. The last 2 presidents of the University of South Florida have been exceptionally strong. And sometimes you have to trust the process. We don't all get a vote on everything. We get a vote on the people who sit on the board of trustees, or, or maybe we have input on who sits. I mean, like, we get input on these things and we can have opinions, and we can, like with Chris, I don't have to agree with everything Chris legislates on. And my way to express my agreement if it's more with him, then I vote for him. If it's not, then I don't. And I think, public response can be negative, but I don't think everybody gets a vote in this process. And you have to believe that your institution puts the right people in place. And if not, that's the fight you should be having.
I agree with that.
So basically, I was chosen to make decisions on behalf of Becca and to do what's in the best interest for her and her family. So I am her voice.
That, Representative Lightval?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, I will be sending you a memo with areas of opportunities for improvement.
So let me ask you this. One of the keys for any university president in this state is having a direct and good relationship with the legislature. I think it's why we have seen in some instances former legislators chosen as university presidents. Certainly John Thrasher comes immediately to mind. Chris, how do you think Stephen Carroll will fare in terms of his relationship with the legislature?
I have never met him. I'm sure he's a nice man. I've heard good things about him from people that work at USF and that are close to USF. So I, have every reason to believe that he will have a good relationship with the legislature. There's been a focus in the last few months on universities and some of the things that they've done wrong, including my university, my alma mater, spending $40 or $50 million building a building that they shouldn't have built. And as a result of that investigation, it was shown that there were other universities that had done similar things, although it wasn't to that extent. So I think that in the coming months, there will be more scrutiny on university spending and kind of oversight in that whole process.
Is higher education under attack from the legislature?
I do not believe so. I wasn't supportive of or agreed with everything that they did regarding UCF, but certainly there were issues at UCF and problems. I don't know who exactly was at fault and who did what, but President Whitaker resigned recently, and now there's an interim president, and hopefully he'll do a good job. And as long as our national championship banner is flying high, as long as we make a good run in March Madness and we continue to be the largest university and the best university in the state of Florida, I will be happy.
I love that nothing you mentioned has to do with academics or actual things that the university is supposed to provide. But hey,
I said,
yes,
I said we're the largest university in Florida.
I know you think size
And
is
we
everything,
have-
but it's not.
And we have great programs. And so we'll be just fine.
What are their top most notable programs?
I was
have
just going to
no
ask
idea.
that. I'm like, name
They
three top
work very
programs.
closely with the space program.
Oh, that's cool.
And Brevard, the stuff out there.
Is that who's funding it
Engineering,
now? UCF, since our
And
country
engineering is highly up there, or up there a lot. Hospitality with the Rosen Center of Hospitality, or Rosen Center. And communications, I think, is pretty good. Oh, and nursing was the other one I was thinking of.
Nursing's always strong
So-
whenever they have those.
Yeah, they really are. Well, good for them.
All right,
Hey,
curious.
my son got his education degree from the University of Central Florida, so I'll back you on.
Yeah, I went there for a
the
year.
quality of the
Good.
school. Hey, what about arming teachers? Seems to be a hot topic in Tallahassee. Let's start with our representative. Tell us where you stand on arming teachers and where we are in that process.
Sure. After the tragedy at February 14th, 2018, there was a safety commission that was set up that was chaired by Sheriff Bob Gualtieri, who is the sheriff over in Pinellas. And some of the recommendations that came out of that, one of the more controversial recommendations was to allow classroom teachers to be part of the Guardian program. The Guardian program was something that the legislature passed last year, and I supported, that would have allowed non-classroom teachers, so whether it's a football coach, an assistant principal, a custodian, etc., to volunteer to apply to be in the Guardian program. Once they volunteered, they would have to go through some psychological and mental health exams to see if they would be fit for the program. If they were deemed to be fit from a psychological and mental health standpoint, then they would do a 144-hour training that the sheriff and the county implemented. And it would be up to the sheriff to determine who would be eligible to be a guardian and who wouldn't. They would have to pass with very high marks in the active shooter training and other things that were part of the class. And then once they were guardians, they would be able to carry a concealed weapon on campus. And in the event of a school shooting, they would be deputized as law enforcement officers. And so they, couldn't pull over somebody for speeding. They couldn't, arrest somebody for, breaking the law. But if there was a school shooting, they would be deputized and be deemed a law enforcement officer. And then they were tasked to do what they thought was necessary to defend themselves and their school against the active shooter. And so what the House passed recently in the Education Committee, which I serve on, would be to allow classroom teachers that same opportunity to take part in the program. And one of the interesting parts of it was during the Safety Commission, the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas School Safety Commission, one of the groups that strongly supported arming of teachers and allowing teachers to be guardians were the teachers at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School that were interviewed.
And how many of those teachers were actually interviewed? What percentage of their teaching population?
Oh, it was a lot. And, Bob Gualtieri would be an interesting person to talk to because he was not always in favor of the concept of classroom teachers being able to carry. Ideally, you would have every school would have a school resource officer and other trained professionals to protect those students. But if you're, for instance, one of the teachers that died at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was a 20-year military vet. So that guy should have been able to carry a gun while the coward cop was hiding behind a tree outside hearing the gunshots.
I'm weapons qualified, and I wouldn't be comfortable carrying a gun as a teacher.
Yeah, well, then you don't have to do it.
But
it's not
that's
a
the thing,
mandatory thing.
A couple of questions. Number one, are there not, for districts that do accept this policy, because I know they can opt out, aren't there certain financial benefits if they opt in?
I'm not sure. I know that there are 25 of the 67 counties that do the Guardian program, including Hillsborough County. And some of the counties do it slightly different. For instance, you could have a guardian who is the new football coach or the new assistant football coach that nobody knows is a retired cop. And, somebody like that would be the most logical. And also with the Guardian program, the other teachers in the school wouldn't know who it is. The only people that know is the principal and the local law enforcement.
That's how you know they haven't talked to a lot of teachers, because there is no tea that is not spilled in a school.
Yeah, everyone's going to know who that is.
Business.
Yeah, I mean, they'll say that we don't know, but everybody knows in any office.
And that's how are you going to deputize people? Hold on a second, Mr. or Mrs. with the AR-15. Give us a minute. We need to swear everybody in so they can, protect their classrooms. I mean, it's illogical.
No, but I think they're deputized before.
Yeah.
And then if there's a shooting, they spring into action.
Right.
Like they're ready to go like a ninja. I think that's the...
And so, for instance, if you're a classroom teacher that is a guardian, there's nothing that says if there's a school shooting, you have to run out in the hallway and start running after the assailant.
I kind of feel that's what they're saying, though.
No, you can stay in your classroom because you do what is in the best interest to protect yourself and your students. So you can sit in your classroom while the kids are hiding in the closet. As soon as the gunman tries to walk in, you blow his head off.
feel like that's a dangerous assumption because I feel, and I know this hasn't explicitly stated anywhere, but I kind of feel like the expectation is when something happens, somebody who has had 120 hours of training or 100, how many hours? 145 hours of training is going to suddenly spring into action and save the day when I don't know that that's really realistic in terms of what would happen.
That's essentially what the school resource officer
should be doing
at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas was accused of, was not springing into action.
He hid behind a tree.
So why would we think that somebody else would have any more impetus to engage than a trained officer
who did that for a living? Like, that was that guy's job, that hid behind a tree. So what? So I guess how would I expect an English teacher who has had 145 hours worth of training, who wants to serve, how can I expect him or her to actually spring into action too?
Three teachers at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas were killed.
Yeah.
All three of them were glorified human shields. That's how they died, was shielding their kids from gunfire.
That is so sad.
Two of the three weren't even assigned to that building, but they were part of the school safety team. And so they ran into the building to try to help the kids when they, heard the shooting. And Scott Peterson was hiding behind a tree with some other deputies.
Wait, what's his name? Really, Scott Peterson?
Yeah.
That name is cursed, man. Like, I'm sorry. There's every single Scott Peterson in the history of famous Scott Petersons have been an awful person. Just saying.
My issue with arming teachers is very complicated and diverse. But number one, I think it's a terrible idea. But put that aside, the policy you're writing is awful. 144 hours of training.
Which is the same that law enforcement takes for active shooter.
Okay. But they're not paid. Everyone needs to understand that we're asking educators to take time out of their already super busy days, or maybe they should give up summers when they're supposed to be, planning, and do 144 hours of training, which equates, what was the bonus you told me they get if they do this? It's
$500 or something.
It shakes down to they get paid about $3.47 an hour.
And who's making them do this, Becca?
Okay, well then if nobody's going to do it and there's no real incentive, then why don't you guys talk about and legislate on something that might actually improve the safety in our schools?
Okay, and the part of the bill that we passed had other recommendations from the School Safety Commission. And some of the toughest meeting I've ever had as a legislator was exactly a week after the shooting. I met with students from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas, including 9th and 10th graders who were in the building when the shooting happened, who saw their friends being killed in front of them, saw the blood on the walls. The toughest thing I've ever had asked of me was when a 9th grader young lady looked at me and said, "How can you guarantee my safety whenever I go back to school?" There's nothing that I could tell her. Since then, I've met with 4 parents of students who were killed. One of them I talk to on a regular basis, who's a friend of mine. 2 other ones I've met in the past few months. One of the parents was against allowing teachers to be guardians. And so I asked him, I said, "Sir, does this mean you're against the bill?" And he said, "Absolutely not, because the good that's in the bill far outweighs any bad stuff that would, any of the stuff that I disagree with." And so when you make decisions, whether it's this bill or this school safety bill that we passed last year, you have to outweigh the good with any potential bad. And I honestly, I don't think giving teachers the option of protecting themselves is a bad idea. My mother was a retired elementary school teacher. She would never be a guardian, but nobody's making people like her be guardians. It's the people that, are frankly comfortable with carrying a gun and, that have that background and that desire to get the proper training and pass, the classes that they have to take. Those would be the people that would be ideal guardians.
And I get that. But my problem is, and I've talked to people all across the region where we all reside, and y'all funded, an additional or created an existing position for a school resource officer for every school. But here's the deal. I don't know a single person who doesn't see their school resource officer every single day directing traffic morning and in the evening. If you wanted to commit a violent act, do it right before school lets in or lets out, because the school resource officer is standing in the exact same place every single day.
And that's what happened in Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. It was right as school was about to be let out, and their school resource officer hid behind a tree and he said it wasn't his duty to protect the kids. when we were growing up, some of us, more recently than others, the school resource officer was the guy that, or man or woman, who either couldn't make it as a street cop or who was about to retire. Now a school resource officer has to be a detective, has to be a one man or one woman SWAT team officer, has to, be a regular security guard, and has to be a mental health counselor. And so the school resource officers now are completely different than what they were 20 or 30 years ago, or even 10 or 15 years ago.
I think the largest question is, does adding guns into a school setting make it safer for this kind of potential attack? And are there unintended consequences, which we always talk about, that could go wrong? What if a student wrestles the gun away from a teacher? What if the teacher takes the classes but has not been properly screened and may use his gun to try to intimidate his students? I mean, when you're talking about essentially the school system is one of, if not the largest employer in the state of Florida. You're talking about a very large pool of people. And now we want to give them license to carry guns around our kids. And I'm not sure we can be certain that even those who choose to become a guardian should or could be trusted around our kids with an armed weapon. I mean, I hope there are some filters being put in place to try to ensure that those who opt to become guardians can truly be trusted.
Well, I mean, I think Chris talked about some very smart and intelligent means in which to screen out folks. Like, I don't think that you're being negligent in that area. I just don't think the policy makes sense.
Sheriff Gualtieri stood up in our committee and said point blank, I know of many teachers that I wouldn't want to have be guardians and who I would not approve to be guardians, even if they pass the course. So the local sheriff is the one who determines, hey, Becca, you can do it. Carla, we don't know about you. Ernest, you would be eligible if you wanted to.
I love how the only person who's weapons qualified is like, I'm not sure about you. I love that. Great. Moving on.
Well, awesome. We've heard you talk about David Straz and others.
I'm not going to shoot anybody that doesn't deserve it.
I will say, though, now that I know you're weapons qualified, I'm going to be a lot nicer to you.
You should be nice to me and just because I'm a nice person.
So, to me, I think we're talking about the wrong things. I mean, I understand intellectually where you're coming from with arming teachers. I don't think it makes sense. I find it deeply problematic. And if Pinellas County Schools chooses to participate, there's a very good chance that I would move my kids out of that school. My other question for you is, are you funding this for charter schools and private schools as well?
Actually, in the bill, there's a provision to allow charter schools and private schools to have guardians.
Okay. I was just curious because that's a lot of students and I want to know if they're protected. But to me, the thing is we're wasting our money and we need to do some really deep dive stuff on mental health. And instead of hiring an SRO or adding 2 SROs, you need to add 2 social workers to campus.
I mean, I get that, but at the same time, like if somebody is going to come in, I mean, guns are available readily in our society. So even if you have somebody who's designated a mental health threat and they get kicked out of school, they can always come back in and shoot up the school. That we've seen that happen.
And that's what
so
happened.
I kind of feel like, okay, so let me tell you.
Because we don't have a system in place to help the kids with the greatest mental health needs. That's what we should be talking about.
I am unsure if it is always a mental health issue. And I think if we always frame it as a mental health issue and not just domestic terrorism, I think if you look at it from a domestic terrorism lens, I think that, you start to see breakdowns in systems versus if you look at it from a mental health lens, you're like, okay, well, this one thing is going to fix this. And I think it's a holistic issue. I mean, like, yes, they could be in need of mental health issues. Yes, they could just be really, really bad people. Yes, they have access to guns. Yes, they have maybe a home life that's less than ideal. There's a lot of factors that kind of shape who a shooter is. And I think if you only look at it through one lens, you're missing the bigger picture.
For sure. And I'm not saying that's a catch-all. I think one of the biggest problems we do legislatively is we put one Band-Aid on one
Agreed.
thing and we walk away.
Yeah, I'm
But
with
I
you.
think the fact remains that one, we should, some of those things that you just mentioned, we could easily address with increased mental health services and the ability to identify those things and community resources in which to meet those needs, which are blatantly absent and many of which are operating on research that's 15 years old. Number two, if we have people, if we started using the word domestic terrorism when we talked about this stuff, we would have taken action a long time
Agreed.
ago. Because we love to fight the war on terror. We just don't
Agreed.
want to admit that it exists here in America.
Absolutely. That's what I'm saying. That is exactly what I'm saying.
And I
So
Th-
that's,
hear you. I'm
damn it,
with
that's
you.
great. Yes.
This is one of the rare instances that I agree with my dear friend Becca in the respect that there needs to be more mental health funding in
Agreed.
schools. Last year, the bill that we passed added some mental health funding, but there's still, especially in the middle schools. I know school psychologists in Hillsborough County in the middle school level who have 2 or 3 schools each that they go to and are psychologists for. And that's not, they're spread way too thin. Oftentimes in the elementary school level, the mental health counselor is the principal.
Yeah.
And they're not trained for that. And so that, that's definitely something that needs to continue to be addressed.
Agreed. But I also think that, we need to be realistic at what happens in a school shooting, because I guarantee you what you think is going to happen in following protocol is not actually what occurs in that moment. Like, people act in very different ways than you would expect during times of crisis. So I think that adding more guns to a situation might, I don't know if it's going to hurt it, but I don't think it will help. So when I was in high school, we had bomb threats
20
all the
years
time.
ago.
I was in high school 20 years ago.
Since you had your
We
reunion.
had bomb threats all the time. But I remember this moment where Gallagher, the comedian, went to our high school. Sometimes he would come back and do shows and things like that. So I remember the principal got on the intercom and was like, "Hey, y'all, Gallagher is coming." And my high school drama teacher packed up her purse and flew out of that building, like full sprint, like ran, like her ass was gone. And we're like, that's weird. She's really excited to see Gallagher. It turns out Gallagher was the code for active bomb threat. We didn't find that out until later because she told us like an idiot. And looking back, as my high school reunion was 20 years ago, last night, looking back, I'm like, she left us. She full on sprinted out of there and left us. And it was a small class of like 10 people. I mean, if a bomb had really gone off, I mean, we would have been so dead. She would have been fine. We would have been so dead. Because there was no one to lead us out to the assembly. There was no one to lead us out outside. She just got her shit and left. And and that was somebody that we were really close to. You're really close to your high school drama teacher. Like, she's like your second mom or big sister or whatever.
I'd like to pour a little something out for Sandra Cockrell if you're listening, girl.
Oh, I so nice.
Still loving you.
Sandra, this one's for you.
I forgot my high school drama teacher, but she had an impact on me.
But I mean, this was like drama 3 or drama 4. So we had all been in that cohort, and we checked out her house. Like, she freaking left us, man. So it's just, I think that when you're in times of crisis, people behave in ways that are incredibly surprising. And I don't know. I just think adding guns, you'll get some surprising outcomes if you add guns.
I think
That's all I'm
another
saying.
issue, and I don't know how to solve this, is that these shooters get way too much attention and are glorified and become heroes to these sick individuals that want to be like them. So, 20 years later, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold are still heralded as, heroes by these sick, maniacs that want to shoot up schools and get their name in the paper and be remembered and, have all this attention. And if there's a way to just focus on, well, such and such killed, 8 people, here's tributes to these 8 people, and this person's, prison ID number is, whatever it is, without ever mentioning their name.
No, we saw that in New Zealand where there were 2 terrible mass shootings at mosques, and the country has blurred out the image of the shooter's face when he's appeared in court, and the prime minister has made it very clear that she never plans to mention his name or in any way bring notoriety to this horrible act. I mean, I think you make a good point. Here in the United States, I think it could be a challenge to get media outlets to follow that kind of policy. We're moving towards that. I don't think we're there yet. And of course, here we have so many who choose to, how should I say, be their own media outlet. You can find a picture and the name of the shooter, the alleged shooter in New Zealand, on the internet. You have to look for it a little bit, but you can find it. I mean, there are some people who derive pleasure from putting that kind of information out there. But I think you make a really good point about not glorifying the shooters. And another thing I'm not sure we can correct is just how sad it's become that our schools are now these targets, and we have to inform the students of that. And in your Gallagher story, at least there was some attempt to kind of shield you and the other students from the danger that may or may not have been taking place.
1997 was a good year.
Yeah, we are not doing that anymore. We are conducting active shooting trainings for students. We are showing them films about what can happen and what can go wrong. And I was talking to a friend last week who said maybe 9 or 10 years ago, he could go to the school before school started and have breakfast with his elementary school age son. And now 10 years later, his daughter is in elementary school and he cannot have breakfast with her. He can't even access the campus without going through a single point of entry, checking in at the office, getting showing his license, getting a sticker, and all of these things are necessary.
And that's only you can get entry if you have a level 2 certification. You can't just do it.
Right. And all of these things are necessary. And I think at some point the security was too lax. But, now we're changing the definition of what school is and the sense that it belongs to the community.
I deeply disagree with what you're saying that's necessary. I think it's a mistake to keep parents off campus. I think we should make it more accessible. And it is, as somebody who's been talking about violence prevention and working in that field for 15 years, the less hospitable an environment is by having people who are engaged and invested in the individuals there. As an SRO, I might not have a personal investment in these children, but as a parent, as a guardian, grandparent, whatever it may be, I'm far more interested. And the more we can fill our schools with people like that, the smarter we are. That's good violence prevention. What's bothering one of the many things that's bothering me is there's so much confusion, and I don't know if this has been clarified in some of your committee meetings, Chris, is how many drills a year do we have to do? Because I can promise you it is traumatizing our children.
And that's not the legislator's fault.
No, I'm not saying it
school
is.
districts are doing them once a month when that was not especially, for the younger kids, scaring them half to death. And I've gotten some calls about this from my constituents that it was supposed to be regularly scheduled like you would do other drills. And some school districts interpret it as doing them once a month. And, I think there's a fine line between, terrorizing young kids and making sure you're prepared, heaven forbid, if anything bad were to ever happen.
I mean, the first thing that I do when I go in my classroom, whether I'm at USF or UT or wherever, is I look for the quickest evacuation route to lead them and then what I can put against up the wall if there's a shooter. That is the first thing I do, and I shouldn't have to.
Right.
No, I mean, my 5th grader came home from school a week or two ago, and he told me about one of our dear friends, a kid we've known forever. He's like, he was crying at school today. And I said, why? And he said, well, we had one of the active shooter drills, and they don't tell the kids it's a drill until it's over. So these 5th graders.
Are you serious?
I am serious.
Oh, that's messed up.
So this child literally doesn't know if he's going to live or die until it's over. And that is disgusting.
That's messed up. Is that even legal? That's so awful.
It is wrong.
I'm looking at you, Chris, as if you have all the answers, but
That's not. I mean, go talk to your school district.
That's
That's
messed
not the
up.
legislature.
Yeah.
You know, all this talk about high schools and Carla's 20th reunion was recently, and you know all the good times that are
8
taking
hours
us
ago.
back to the 80s and 90s when we were in school.
Yeah.
And so it leads me to my next question for you guys: is what do y'all think Deneen was like in high school?
I believe she was a dancer. Does anyone remember if that's credible
I
information?
don't know. We should have probably asked her.
She may have been on the cheerleading squad, but we'll probably never determine that.
That is good intel.
So, about time to wrap up this scintillating episode as we move forward from that unwarranted mention of Deneen. There's a little game going on right now on the internet. Everyone's kind of playing. You Google Florida man and your birthday. We've done this. What did you guys come up with? Carla?
Predictably, Florida man blows off part of his hand in July 4th firework accident.
So for my birthday, from Flagler County, Florida man rigged door in attempt to electrocute pregnant wife.
Oh my God.
On October 16th, live from Palm Bay, Florida, and how appropriate is this? Florida man sets self on fire while trying to burn a cross.
Well, mine was Florida man exposes himself at the Dollar General store. And I think I win the prize. He not
I wonder what he
only
would do for the people at Target. Really bring it out.
not only was he masturbating at the Dollar General store in Mims, Florida, but he was following a woman around with his penis exposed because he thought she was attractive.
Well, if that
So-
is the way to my heart. I don't know what it is.
Speaking of Mims, Florida, and this is a serious thing. One of the things I learned in college in the great University of Central Florida in my Florida history class was there were a civil rights icon in Florida who was assassinated in Mims, Florida. Harry and Harriet T. Moore.
Well, that's a downer.
No,
That's a lot. We were having
when
fun
he
talking
said-
about somebody
when
rubbing
he
one out
said-
at Dollar General, and now you gotta
when
take
he
it
talked
down.
about Mims, Florida, I figured I would spit out
Oh.
some knowledge from the old
Thanks for dropping
UCF.
some knowledge and getting us all upset.
So yeah, Harry T. Moore was he was a big civil rights leader back in the day and was assassinated in Mims.
Hey,
And
And,
his-
that murder went unsolved.
Yeah, and
course
it's still
it
was a
unsolved.
murder committed by a Florida man.
yeah, I imagine a Florida man or two that were in the KKK back in the day.
can you tell me? So, did the woman get quoted in the article?
She did not.
That would have been some interview.
You know, so many of these articles are based on police reports, and sometimes you find law enforcement officials who are very good at putting together their police reports as if they have the media in mind, and they put great detail into the arrest reports. And I just want to compliment the person who made this arrest because he put in a lot of good detail.
So back in throughout your career in journalism, back when you used to look at police reports, whether it was here or up in Gainesville, hanging out with some of your friends up there, was there ever a police report that really stuck out to you that was memorable?
I never got a chance to write something like this, but I have to tell you, in the newsroom, when you get to write a story like Florida man masturbating at Dollar General store, you are excited, and everybody else gathers around your desk to watch you type up this story. I mean, it's like a big deal, man. It's like, oh, we got one. It's like catching the big fish. Oh, I got one. Come look at this.
So this story was pretty exciting all the way around.
It got a rise out of a lot of people.
And the award goes to
And
Ernest
scene.
Hooper. That was excellent.
That was amazing.
Do you think Florida gets a bad reputation?
Yes, because of the
though?
open records laws. Because that's what I'm talking about. You have this really weird open records law that allows people to find things really, really quickly that other states don't have. So other states are crazy. They're crazy ass people too, but we don't find
Wouldn't
them.
you rather know that you had a meat beater living down the street from you, cruising the streets of Dollar General?
I'm not saying don't do it. I think all the other states should do it too. But I'm saying we have particularly unstringent open records laws.
No,
I'd like
it's
us
part
to-
of what makes our state great.
I think that's great, and I'm all
Can we
for it.
get a-
I'm just saying other
Can you
states should
get
have
a-
that too.
Can you get a researcher at the Tampa Bay Times to look up the percentage of people who have been arrested masturbating in Dollar General across the nation? Maybe it's a thing. It's a club.
Would that cause you to be on the sexual offender registry?
Probably. If a guy is following me around with his erect penis, I would hope that he would end up on some sort of list.
Did it have his picture? Because we got to do it.
This is who we'd like to interview. Sir, if you're listening, we'd like to speak with you and hear your point of view.
I don't think he's listening.
Unlike other local podcasts, we don't need guests to be interested.
But you know, honestly, this is like a really good story because it's funny. But at the same time, men don't have to worry about this shit. We, and I'm pointing at Becca, have to worry about some asshole with his erect penis following us around Target or Dollar General. I mean, this is what happens. Women get targeted all the time by weirdos, and this one just happens to be a little.
Let's just
extreme,
say my
but-
shopping later today
know.
is going to be marred a little bit. But
No, I think we have to be mindful of where we are all the time in our bodies and what we're doing and who's following us to our car and shit like that. And I think this is a really funny story, but that poor woman must have been terrified. I would have been terrified.
What do the other shoppers do? Like if they're like is it one of those.
I just think
Attention, aisle 4.
Yeah, everyone to
Erect
like
penis,
run
aisle
for their
5.
lives, like every man for themselves.
I don't know if it's a run for your life situation, but if I was the manager, I definitely would put a discount on like hygiene items for the day, like 25% off. For,
Here's some Lysol.
Excuse
How
me,
about it?
ma'am. There's someone behind you. His penis is exposed.
oh, they don't really cover that in the
Penis
Dollar
on
General.
aisle 4. Penis on aisle 4.
I wonder if that's ever worked, like for somebody who's exposed themselves, like
They get a date.
like to a woman, and she's like, "All right, come on, let's go."
How do you keep your pants on? Like, and you're like, that's a lot of
think it's like
multitasking. Now, I'm not
shuffling
very
like a penguin.
graceful, but I just feel
Yeah.
like that is very challenging.
I
know
think
what?
they're probably shuffling like a penguin.
I bet Dollar General has a code word like Gallagher is coming. And that lets all the employees
No
know.
pun
that.
intended.
They run for the
Snake
hills.
out
this
on
poor
aisle
woman.
2. Snake out on aisle 2.
Oh man, that was magical. Your birthday wins the prize.
Yeah, really.
I do worry about I don't worry about our state's reputation. In some ways, our reputation is validated by truth.
Yeah, you can't worry about it. It's true.
But what I would say in defending my native state is we're at the bottom of the drain, and a lot of these people are here because they've come from somewhere else.
I know. I hate that.
I think we should make a delineation between Florida man and Florida native. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah, we should, because most
Like-
of those people aren't even from here.
Yeah, I want to say like Florida man who moved from Ohio.
Yeah, they're all from Michigan, Ohio,
Ohio's a freak show.
Nebraska. Yeah,
Hey,
Ohio's
that's my
messed
best
up.
client. Back off of Ohio.
That is your best client. We love you, Ohio.
It's the Buckeye State.
It is
Need
the
I say
Buckeye State.
more?
Skyline chili.
Oh,
Is that
Skyline
is that
Chili.
from Ohio?
Yeah, that's Cincinnati.
Oh, I've had that. That's pretty good. Skyline
All
Chili's
right.
pretty good.
I haven't because it's got meat in it.
We'll give Ohio a pass.
Yeah, you don't eat anything with a face.
All right, I think it's about time for us to wrap up. Any final thoughts from the illustrious crew?
I, like every person of my persuasion, is crushing pretty hard on Mayor Pete this week. He's speaking my language. And while I've donated to pretty much every Democratic candidate for president, I enjoyed donating to his the most.
Chris, your final thought.
I don't mean to suck up to you guys, but I've missed y'all being up in Tallahassee.
Oh, we've missed you.
And coming home and getting to hang out with y'all for a little while is a lot of fun. And then I get to return to the swamp.
Yeah, we're good people.
Carla, your final thought.
I don't really have one today. I would just signed up for a race in Universal. It's a Sesame Street themed race at Universal, my first 5K. So I just signed up for that.
What was most memorable about your 20-year reunion?
Oh, memorable? I mean,
Or the highlight?
I live here, and so a lot of people like came in from out of state I haven't seen in a while, but I follow them all on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, so we all know what we're doing.
So what percentage of them looked as good as they do on Instagram in real life?
All of them. Plant High School is a pretty good school, so we have the resources to do things like take care of ourselves and Botox and gyms and things like eating well and things like that. So people look really good. Honestly, I'm just being honest. Like everybody looks either probably a little older, but the same. Really, I mean,
The people who don't look good don't come. We know that. Who goes to a reunion if you don't look good?
That's why I'm skipping my reunion next year.
I kind of feel that you wouldn't. I mean,
You wouldn't go.
would you,
You
know
wouldn't
you didn't
go.
look good though? I kind of feel like you wouldn't.
One day I'll tell you.
Because it's you,
One day I'll tell you the story about how my ex-girlfriend
Janine.
came to my father's funeral, not Denise. And one of the key points of the story is that she came to, of course, pay respects to the family, but she also came because she looked outstanding.
That's really
Outstanding.
weird. That is really weird. I would never come to a funeral because
Yeah.
I look hot.
She would
But you
definitely
wouldn't
not.
go if life hasn't been good to you.
But she wouldn't. She would not be approved for the Guardian program.
I
There's
guess I
clearly
wouldn't
some-
have the
And this is
self-awareness
exactly
to
why
figure
I'm
that out.
skipping my high school reunion next year. Because I
Why?
packed on some pounds.
But
I
the
mean,
Step Club could
There's
have a
still time.
reunion.
Well, that is true.
Chris, you
the
look
Sesame Street
fine.
run with me. Let's do it.
Pass.
Should we all do a 5K together?
We should. That'll be good.
No.
5K
let's do
for
the Christmas
charity.
We could each, yeah, we should.
So-
we should all do it. Wait, hold on. We should all do a 5K together, and we should each put in like $100 or whatever, and we each get to pick the charity of our choice, and all the money goes.
Oh,
to that.
that's good.
So, like, if Chris wins, he might pick
I
like
guarantee
the
you I'm
RNC.
not going to
Yeah.
win.
You might.
Hey, one day I should tell y'all the story about how I did a half marathon in Clearwater on a dare and came in dead last.
Well, you know, at these theme
came in
parks,
first.
they have a bus that will pick you up if you're too far behind.
No, that like they literally cut down the like the finishing line. I had people that would come up asking if I was all right, if I needed a ride, and I'm just walking through Clearwater Beach to the finish line.
This could be our most bipartisan effort ever. I'd be like, I
So,
got you, man.
3 hours, 3 hours and 21 minutes later, my fat behind finished that race,
Hey, you finished. I've
Yeah,
never
that
done a
was
half
really good.
marathon. Have any of
and
y'all?
I almost died after.
I've never done a 5K. So
So
I don't
Chris
really
is
work
the
out.
most. This is he's
He's
the
most
most
athletic.
sporty around
Yeah,
us.
you're definitely the most sporty of all of us. Good job.
Come on now.
Yeah,
I don't think I could do a 5K when I was 22.
we could totally
I'm
do a 5K.
certain I can't do
Let's
one
Does
do
the
it.
now.
Times do a 5K of any
Ooh,
sort?
let's do the airport one.
We do the turkey trot every year.
That gives
on
me plenty of
Thanksgiving
time to
morning.
prepare.
No, why don't we have to do this now?
I'm not doing the Sesame Street deal, but I'll do a race for the kids.
5K races near me.
What charter school are we gonna do a charity for?
And that's when the love left the room.
Oh, here we go. Oh, I'll be in Hawaii. Never mind.
Or we could do it for Academy Prep for those kids that you want to make go to the underperforming schools.
You know what we
Yeah,
should
because
do?
Chris
Have a
loves
beer
the
run.
kids.
I don't care about the beer.
Oh, we
but
didn't talk about Barbara Streisand today.
We'll talk about
And what
that.
did y'all?
I think you get. I don't know. I don't know.
We should do the Guardian Ad Litem Foundation.
Oh, that you
5K.
signed me up for, and I
Yes.
didn't realize that
Chris
I was
is on my committee, and
on
I'm
the committee
really,
until I
Ice
showed
cream
up.
5K.
I thought they wanted to meet with me as like a legislator or whatnot. It was a daggum committee meeting,
I'm trying to make you serve.
which I'm
Even
I was
greater.
honored to do it. But
We are creating, you and I are working on a lot of projects offline to really improve Pinellas County, and I'm proud of that. Despite the fact that I openly slay you in these conversations because I don't agree with everything you do, I do know you are.
Cry me a river.
All right, I'm going to wrap this up by noting on this day 1 year ago, the city of Tampa saw its largest nonviolent protest in the history of the city, the March for Our Lives, as a result of what happened at Parkland, and more than 15,000 people came out to Curtis Hickson Park and marched through the streets of downtown Tampa. It was a terrific moment. I was among those folks. I was not in Palm Harbor trying to sell a beautiful 3-2 with a pool, Chris. And I hope we see more of it. I hope we see more young people continuing to engage and take steps to bring about change in our society.
And Becca was out of town for 1 year ago
Chris,
today.
where were you?
I was lecturing
I was-
to end sexual
I
violence
was
in
working.
the community,
I was working.
and I still tried to find a local
And
march in which to
then-
participate.
And then I became the only Republican to speak at the March for Our Lives rally in St. Petersburg.
Who invited you
and
to do
the-
that?
Weird.
Well, it was Andrew Gillum followed by me. And the faces in the crowd were pretty interesting. I think they thought I was lost or something. And
Well,
I think that's the impression
it
you get a
wasn't
lot.
one of my better oratorial moments.
oh, well, stay active, stay diligent, stay Florida.
Next week, Mean Tweets by Becca Teeter.
Oh, I'm going to love that. All right. That'll wrap it up for Dishonorable Mention. Hey, you know where to find us? iTunes,
Ditcher.
Facebook.
Dishonorable pod. Dishonorable pod on Insta.
Dishonorable Pod on Instagram, Spotify. You can find us there.
Twitter.
That's where I like to listen. Twitter. And we have our own Facebook page. Becca, how do they find that?
You just look up Dishonorable Mention on Facebook, and we are waiting for you.
Yeah, come visit us. We can
need
continue the
friends.
discussion there.
Yeah, leave us a review.
And yes, please rate us.
Yeah, we're nice people. Leave us a review.